The record reflects we are back in session. Parties to counsel, present, all members of our jury and our alternates are present or witnesses back on the witness stand, and Mr. McGee, you may continue your attendance.
Thank you.
I don't care about the pin.
We had a little accident.
Okay, so keep referring to it as McGyver, it's just to get much easier. On both the 31st and the 2nd, both Sunday and Tuesday, when you saw my client in the house, just so we're clear, every time you saw my client, he was always with Joseph, correct?
No, a couple times he was, Joey was in the office, I don't know if he was on the phone or something, and so, Chase was just hanging out between the living room and the kitchen.
Okay, so if any time my client was away from Joseph, it's because Joseph went in the office to make a phone call or do something there, so Chase came out amongst everybody else.
From what I recall, I mean, he just kind of kept to himself.
While Joseph was on the phone.
Correct.
Now I'm going to turn your attention to February 16th, or the day that you met Susan Blake at the residence. Do you remember that day?
Not exactly. I mean, I remember the day, going out there.
Yes. You remember the day, not the date?
Correct.
Okay. So when you went out and met Susan, she called you and said, can you come with me?
Correct.
And so you said, of course, I'll go.
Yes.
You kind of got the feeling Susan didn't want to go alone.
Correct.
So you met Susan at the house, is that accurate?
Correct.
And so when you got there, she was already there?
She was already there.
And you walked up the front door, knocked on the front door?
I can't recall. Possibly.
Somebody let you in, or did you walk in?
She might have let me in. I might have knocked.
And when you went inside, you said you noticed Susan Blake cleaning the kitchen.
Yeah, I was just trying to take a mental picture from the last time I was there. And Susan was in the kitchen cleaning the counters.
And while she's cleaning, you asked her if the detectives already tested fingerprints already.
Correct.
And Susan told you, yeah, they have.
Well, I think she just said they'd been there. I don't know if I got the exact answer, but can't recall.
Would seeing the report from the interview from 2010 maybe help refresh your memory?
Possibly.
I'm going to show you 1771, 5th paragraph. Read that paragraph, the highlighted section. And if you can read the first sentence of that same paragraph.
McGyver asked Susan.
No. Up here, to yourself.
Okay. Okay.
Now, do you remember telling Detective Hillen that it was on Tuesday, February 16th of 2010 that you received a call from Susan?
Yes.
And that's in the report?
Yes.
Do you remember telling Detective Hillen that on that date in 2010 that Susan told you that they had already dusted?
Yes. If I said that, I might have.
And that's what's in the report?
Correct.
And you told Susan that she probably shouldn't be cleaning if they haven't done all that yet.
Correct.
And your main concern at the time was that Susan could destroy some kind of evidence that could help figure out what's going on.
Yes.
And Susan responses, they've already been here to the residence, so she just continued cleaning.
I believe that's what she said.
So at this point, you began putting the kitchen back together.
According to that, I guess I did.
Does that kind of sound right to your memory?
Yeah, could be.
I mean, it's not like immediate, but that's what you did that day.
Possibly, yeah.
Then you were putting the drawers back in.
Possibly. I think I was maybe, like I stated there, looking to see if she had continued doing some of the painting herself.
And you were looking to see what was done, if there was more work that was done, and that's where you're kind of investigating, you're looking at the kitchen, the areas you had been working.
Yeah, because last I recall, I was the last, working on the kitchen there, and that's when I noticed the paint pan.
And did you notice if any other work had been done when you were looking at it on February 16th?
I might have, I can't recall exactly. Paint was pretty much the same color, from what I could tell.
So, as you stated earlier, Summer wanted to paint the house the color it already was.
Correct.
So it's hard for you, when you're looking at to differentiate what's new and what's old.
Well, this is the kitchen, and Joey and I already made the mistake, so maybe our eyes weren't good enough for finding the color.
Okay. But when you were looking through all the work that was done, that's when you found the paint can.
Correct.
And you noticed that it had foil in it.
Yeah, it just stood out to me because, there's a discussion I had with her about foil.
And so you at least knew Summer was following your instructions on the first half, but not the second half.
Correct, with foil in the pan?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she took that advice.
So, okay, good. She used it, but she didn't pull it out and throw it away.
No, she didn't.
And you were clear with her, clean out the foil pan, and when you're done, so it's clear you're kind of cleaning up and it's easy cleanup.
Yeah, I don't think she wanted any extra work, so it made sense. Obviously, she was going.
When you saw the oil in the pan, you started being concerned like maybe she was interrupted while painting.
Correct.
And something came up.
Correct.
Now, things that you saw on the counter when you came in and Susan was cleaning, you said you saw other things, correct?
Yeah, I think there are some things on the counter that I've seen.
Like you saw coffee was made.
Maybe a coffee pot,
You saw eggs were out.
eggs, maybe.
Plates were out.
I can't recall exactly.
Did you remember seeing popcorn on the futon that didn't have a cover on?
Possibly, I can't recall.
And you saw fruit out.
Can't recall.
Now, whenever you went over to the house, generally you went there in the morning, correct?
Yes.
And the things that you saw out on the counter when you went there on the 16th, was that consistent with what you saw Summer feed the kids in the morning?
Objection calls for speculation, lacks foundation with lack ability to recall.
Oh, we wanted to answer if he knows.
I can't recall.
You can't recall what you saw, or you?
I can't recall that, if that's something that she had on the counter daily.
It's not my question. I said, now she had it on daily. Is the things that you saw on the counter, are those consistent with the things that you would see Summer prepare in the morning?
I can't. No, I don't know.
Did you tell me before lunch that, yes, that is actually what we saw when I come over in the morning?
I was only there those 3 days before, so if that's what she did all the time, I don't know.
The question was, isn't that though what you told me before lunch when we stood over there in the corner, that is consistent with what we saw when we came over in the morning?
Possibly.
Did you tell the district attorney that we had that conversation?
No.
Now, you mentioned something You mentioned that you had seen a futon cover on the futon in the great room with the kitchen before you came over on the 16th.
Yeah, it just looked different, and it looked like I had covered before.
And when you were talking with detectives, remember telling them you remember the texture being kind of like a canvas because you had a similar type cover at your place.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm going to show you some previously marked exhibit 587. Do you recognize that?
The picture is not exactly. It could be a pillow too.
Does that look like a picture of one of the children?
Yes, it does.
And picture of holding a puppy?
Correct.
And that looked like the futon that they could be sitting on like they did all the time.
Objection calls for speculation, lacks foundation.
Sustained.
What does that look like to you?
The picture is too small to have the context of what exactly it is. It could be a pillow, but I can't really tell.
I'll show you some previously marked exhibit 5. That look familiar.
It does.
And what's that a picture of?
It looks like the futon.
And Joey and Gianni are on it, correct?
Correct.
Now looking again at page 587, that seem to be the same futon, same clothes.
Objection, counsel testifying, or is that a question?
That was a question. Does that appear?
I don't. In the larger picture, I don't see the same texture. Could be, maybe not.
Okay. Let's see. Number 5. Okay, if I can have the deputy switch to number 4. Do you see that picture of exhibit number 5?
Yes.
I'll zoom in underneath the feet. You see that kind of hex kind of pattern to it.
Correct.
And then the edges and the seaming on the exhibit, correct?
Correct.
Then you'll see the zippers for the pillows up on top.
Correct.
Now when you walked through the house on the 16th when Susan was there, did you go upstairs?
Yes.
Did you go into the laundry room?
Can't recall. Might have, actually.
Did you look for the cushion and the futon cover on top of the dryer?
Can't recall.
Shoe came untied. I don't want to trip and fall. I'm going to show you what's been marked 585 and 586. First, we'll start with the first one, 585. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
It's a pillow. And it could be the same one that's on the futon.
And is that the dryer that's in the upstairs laundry room?
Yes, it is.
And then if you look at the next picture, 586, is that a different picture of that top of that dryer and the items on top?
Yes, looks like a close-up.
Okay, and let me put those on the monitor so you can get a better look. 585. This again is a picture of the dryer inside the laundry room on the second floor.
Correct.
And then I'll zoom in. This is, looks like a pillow that's consistent with the one that was down on the futon you saw.
Objection assumes facts not evidence.
That's what he testified to when I was up
The
there.
objection sustained is calling for speculation conclusion.
Did you not say that the item you saw on top of the dryer looked like the other one that was down on the futon?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Overruled, answer.
Could be.
And the item here to the left, can you see a and I'll point to what's behind you first. Up in this top area here, that looked like the zipper on
Yes.
the covers.
Yes, it does.
And if you look closely at the pattern, it has that same hex pattern.
Correct.
We'll go to another shot of that same top of the dryer, correct? 586?
Correct.
And there you get a better look at the pattern on when I zoom into the cloth on the left side.
Correct.
And that looks like what was missing from the futon down below.
Correct.
You could turn on that. So now you realize that while the futon cover wasn't on the futon, it might not have been missing.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Now, after February 16th, you know detectives came back into the house and they interviewed you, correct?
I believe so.
You talked to multiple detectives from the San Diego Sheriff's Department,
I believe so.
and you had updates with them on future conversations with them about things you saw, or they were giving you updates. Do you remember that?
I think so.
And during one of those conversations, namely on March 8th of 2010, a little over a month after you last saw Joseph and Summer and the kids, you remember speaking with the Detective Hillen on that day?
Not exactly.
Would seeing a report written by Detective Hillen about that conversation help refresh your memory?
Possibly.
We'll go to 1773. Fifth paragraph. Actually, fourth and fifth. You can read both those paragraphs and let me know when you're done.
Okay.
Does reading that refresh your memory that you spoke to Detective Hillen on March 8th of 2010?
Somewhat. It's still 8 years ago, so
Right.
a little tough.
You remember talking to Detective about providing them a photograph you had of Summer wearing a certain jacket.
I recall. Yeah, I recall. I think I found a photograph. With one check.
Yeah, you can turn that up. And the reason you chose that photograph is because it looks similar to the one that the female wore in the video crossing into Mexico. That's what struck you, correct?
Possibly.
You weren't sure, but you said this could be.
Possibly.
And so you provided that photograph saying it has the same white jacket and it has that fur collar. You just couldn't tell if the fur collar was the right color.
Correct. I just remember the footage was pretty grainy, but, you know, looking for some kind of answer.
Because you didn't know what happened to him. You were just trying to find the truth and trying to find your friend.
Correct.
But you did give him something saying, this could be a photograph of that jacket, I don't know.
Could be.
And then you spoke to Detective DuGal a few weeks after that. You remember that?
exactly.
You do know you talked to the detectives.
Yes.
And do you remember the detective telling you something to the fact that there might have been internet searches about going to Mexico with children?
Yeah, I recall that.
And what was your reaction to hearing that?
I just didn't, first, I think I didn't believe it.
It didn't sound right to me.
No.
But you knew you had a picture of the jacket, and you knew they had those internet searches a couple days before. You remember the next time you called the detectives after that?
No, I don't.
Would reviewing that same page, a couple paragraphs down, maybe help refresh your memory?
Possibly. Okay.
Does that refresh your memory of talking to Detective DuGal on March 29th of 2010?
It's a little bit.
And then the next time you spoke to Detective DuGal was November 27th of 2012. Does that sound about right?
Possibly.
So about 2.5 years later is the next time you ask for an update.
Possibly.
Is it fair to say after you saw the picture of the jacket and heard about them going to Mexico that you maybe think that's where they went?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained as calling for speculation and conclusion and on relevance to those.
One second here. Nothing further.
Getting another interrupt.
Just briefly. Mr. McCargar, let me work backwards. At some point you were showing a video of people walking across the border. Remember that?
I do.
Were you able to identify anyone in that photo? Or film?
Not clearly, not definitively.
So providing a picture of someone in some jacket that may have been similar was just an attempt by you to be helpful.
I just, we're just searching for an answer.
You indicated on cross-examination that part of the reason the paint tray stuck out to you was it also then caused you to look and see if there had been some painting over of what you had already done.
Correct.
And do you recall telling Detective Hillen, in fact, it did appear to you as if it had been painted over?
Not exactly. Possibly I did.
Well, if you would have said that to him at the time, would that have been most fresh in your recollection at the time?
It would have been.
Because you talked to him February 17th? You remember what day that was?
Not exactly.
Yeah, let me go back. You talked to him on Wednesday, February 16th, right?
Objection as to, is that a question or testimony?
Sustained as pleading.
Did you talk to him on February 16th?
I believe so.
Okay. And that was Detective Hillen, right?
I believe so.
That was closer in time to the series of events that you're talking about than you are now, 9 years later, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall specifically telling him that you checked to see if there had been painting over what you had done, and you said it appeared to have been? Did you say that?
Likely. Likely I did.
Do you recall the time of the last text message communication you had with Summer was?
The Wednesday on the 3rd, Wednesday afternoon, after I'd left.
Do you remember having one with her briefly on the 4th?
I recall I might have maybe responded on the 4th.
Do you remember what time you would have responded?
Probably in the morning.
Did you ever get a response after that?
No, I didn't.
At the time you were at the house on the 31st and the 2nd, where were the dogs?
On the 31st, Bear was, I recall when we were sitting by the banister later in the evening, he was laying there by us. The smaller puppy was on the outside.
What about during the day?
I believe they put it outside while we were painting and while the kids were running around.
And on the 2nd?
Same thing.
Did you note any strange behavior by those dogs at any time during those days on the 31st or the 2nd?
No, I just, Bear was a pretty large older dog. He's just laying around.
Any aggressiveness or barking or running around in circles crazy?
No, the puppy possibly.
And the
Not
kids?
Bear. And the kids.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, because I think I may have skipped over it, on the 2nd, when you were there, where was the defendant when he was there?
I think he was between, between Joey's office and the living room.
That'd be the family room, great room, kitchen area.
Yeah, and I believe he came after, maybe I was first there, because I got there early.
Did you ever see the defendant in the office either day, 31st or 2nd?
I don't recall.
Is it possible?
Possible.
Calls for speculation.
Sustained cause for speculation conclusion.
How long do you say you know Joe?
Since maybe 1999, 2000, I think.
In any of that time, and you were familiar with his business at the time, right?
Yes.
At any time during that relationship, did he give you credit card numbers to buy stuff?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Yeah, have you heard?
No.
Did he ever give you checks to fill
Your
out?
Honor, objection, same, objection,
Sustained.
relevance.
And on cross-examination, you were asked about a lot of things about what Summer was thinking and said to you. You indicated at one point Summer was upset with the defendant. Why?
Yes.
Objection, ask and answer on direct.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Yes. Specifically, she called me to complain that he was at her house eating pizza, and that was, stepping over his bounds and telling her how maybe he would raise the kids and what she's doing wrong.
What other aspects of the defendant was she unhappy with?
All right, the fact that Joey's, that he was at the house quite a bit.
Your Honor, may we approach?
sure.
On the record.
Right on. You may continue, Mr. Williams.
In the decade or more that you knew Mr. McStay, were you ever involved in his business at all?
No,
Did you ever engage in any business dealings with him on his behalf?
no.
The color of the paint that was being used on the island, what color was that?
White or off-white? Don't know, I can't recall what we made a mistake with.
Okay. What was it?
Navajo white.
Navajo white?
Sure.
Swiss coffee, Navajo white, something like that?
Possibly.
Okay. And was that the paint that was also being used on trim?
It's a good question, I don't know.
You don't remember?
Don't know.
At any time that you were there painting with Summer, how was she dressed?
Probably casually.
Well, your casual may be different than my casual. What do you mean by casual?
She wasn't wearing a tie or suit.
Nope, not.
You know, could have been flip-flops, you know, beach attire.
Okay. What, some type of top, some type of pant?
Yeah, kids running around.
Okay. But she was dressed.
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything else in response?
Yes, just briefly. Now on redirect, you were asked about what part of the kitchen was repainted. Do you remember that part of the redirect? That was just asked of you by me.
Yeah.
And you had a conversation with Detective Hillen in February of 2010 concerning that.
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
Would seeing a transcript from that conversation help maybe refresh your memory of to what extent or what you were talking about in that regard?
Yeah, possibly.
I'll show you, it'll be page 78 and 79 of that transcript. Left side.
You said the left side?
Left side. Yeah, those two pages. Not the highlight. Then go page, then page 11 not across.
That's why it makes sense.
Yeah. Figure that out. Just review as much of 78 and then 79 below as you feel necessary, and let me know when you're done.
Okay.
Just seeing that transcript, does that kind of look like the conversation you had with the detective around that time?
Yeah.
And during that part of the conversation, he said the parts that look painted, looks like maybe Summer started painting the heavier traffic areas just to get them done.
Yes.
And the dogs. Do you know where, well, straight. Are you familiar if Summer and Joseph had the dogs sleep outside or inside during the night?
You know, I can't recall. I know Bear, they had longer, and I think he probably slept inside the house.
So Barry, you think would have been inside. The puppy, you're not sure because you didn't see it enough.
Yes.
So would it be safe to say you wouldn't expect Summer or Joseph to put Bear outside at night?
Objection calls for speculation.
Steve?
Now the island color and the door jamb color and the banister color, you know they were just supposed to be some type of white, correct?
Correct.
You don't know which one was which.
No, can't recall.
But when you went there and saw it on the 16th with Susan, did everything at least look like that's probably how Summer won?
I couldn't tell.
Was there anything obvious like, oh my God, that stands out as the wrong color?
You know, no.
Nothing further.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Any objection to Mr. McCargar being excused?
No, sir.
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir, for your attendance and your honesty. And we have our next witness here.
Yes, Your Honor. People call Troy DuGal Det.
Bless you. Thank you. You got it? Yep. Okay.
Raise your right hand, be sworn.
Do you solemnly state the evidence you'll give us in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your first and last name and spell it for the record.
My first name is Troy, T-R-O-Y. Last name is DuGal, spelled D-U, capital G-A-L.
Okay, next.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, what is your current occupation?
I'm a homicide cold case detective with San Diego County Sheriff's Department.
And is that also your current assignment?
Yes.
Case unit?
Yes.
How long have you been a sworn peace officer?
23 years.
And how long have you been a detective?
13 years.
And has that entire time been spent as a homicide detective?
11 years as homicide, 2 years as an area detective.
Back in February of 2010, what was your assignment at that time?
I was a homicide detective on a active rotational team, not cold case. It was actually going out to investigate homicides, missing persons, officer-involved shootings.
Okay, can you briefly explain what an active rotational team is?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so in our homicide unit, we have two forms of homicide detectives. The team homicide players, they respond 24/7 to what I was just saying, homicides, juvenile deaths, officer-involved shootings, in-custody deaths, all the horrible things that happen in life, missing persons. Cold case detective is broke away. They become the training officers for the other homicide detectives after you're senior, and you focus primarily on the cold case homicides that haven't been solved, and you try to solve old cold cases.
On February 15th, 2010, at approximately 5 p.m., did you receive a call?
I did.
And what was the nature of the call you received?
I was called out to a residence in Fallbrook. It was a missing persons. It was basically to meet a patrol deputy at a residence on a missing persons call.
What did you do in response to that call?
I went to assist the patrol deputy. It was a little out of the norm for how homicide responds.
What do you mean by that?
So typically, when someone makes a missing persons report in San Diego County, a patrol deputy will go out, take the report will be approved, it's sent to the area detective for investigation. It stays with the area detective for what used to be 10 days. That's changed since then, but back in 2010 it was 10 days. At the end of 10 days, if the area detective has checked all the jails, hospitals, every place someone could be, and talked to the family and tried to follow up on the missing persons case, they were transferred over to homicide because we have more resources, and there was a backdoor belief that it could be suspicious, so it would fall into the hands of homicide.
And did you go to the location where the call came from, or where you were ordered to respond to?
I did, and the reason I went there was because The patrol deputy responded and talked to a family member who said, my family's missing and they've been missing for 11 days. So the patrol deputy said, I'm gonna cut to the chase and not wait that 10-day ticker. The family's already said they've been missing 11 days, let's get homicide on board.
And where did you go at that time?
To a residence at 3473 Avocado Vista Lane, I believe it is, in Fallbrook. It was McStay residence.
When you got there, what did you do?
I spoke to the patrol deputy who initially responded.
Was that Deputy Tingley?
It was.
And he described a little bit about the procedure of that. That's for him to brief you on what he's learned at that point.
That's correct.
And did he conduct that briefing with you?
He did.
Were you there alone, or did you have partners?
No, Detective Suzanne Fisk accompanied me out there. We always respond, homicide responds to two detectives to any call minimum.
And when you arrived, was that almost 7 p.m. on the night of the 15th?
That's correct.
We're right on our toy here. Right, DuGal and Fisk, F-I-S-K.
Fiske.
During the briefing, did Deputy Tingley say that he had cleared the house?
He did, and as I talked to him further, he said, I neglected to clear the entire house. I forgot to clear the garage. So the house is clear, meaning nobody's in there, no hurt people, no bad people. It's totally vacant, but I forgot to clear the garage.
What did you do after the briefing?
I told him since he forgot to clear the garage and we had no idea where the family was, that I would like to re-enter the house and walk with him to clear the house and the garage and make sure that the residence was completely safe. So I went with him.
Can you describe generally the house as you saw it then on the 15th?
Sure. Well, the house was unlocked because Deputy Tingley had already been in the house. We entered. I walked into the front door. Straight ahead, I could see off to my right was what looked like an empty living room with a table. There were newspapers all over the floor. There was fresh paint on the wall to my left. There was blue tape visible at the edges of the wall. As I continued into the house, you walk into a dining room area. There was a small dining room round table. Off behind that to the right was a futon, and it was just a cushion. There was no cover on it. Living room to the right, nothing spectacular there. To my left, as I stood at that dining room table, there was a kitchen, and in the kitchen, I did notice there were bananas that had started to rot, eggs on the counter. Oh, on the futon, there were 2 bowls that had some popcorn in it. Not just some, they were pretty substantial amount of popcorn in each bowl, but they were small bowls. And over on the kitchen counter, there was a popcorn bag that was about half full. And there's a bathroom downstairs. I didn't notice anything unusual about that. Went upstairs. The house was pretty empty of furniture. It was obvious just from that view of the downstairs that whoever owned that house was renovating it or just moving in and painting. And so we proceeded upstairs. Upstairs I saw a room that had toys in it, so I knew that there were kids. A master bedroom that had, I believe it was a mattress and then a couple air mattresses, or they may have all been air mattresses. Some bedding on the beds, which were all on the floor, not framed. So it looked like people were spending the night there. The closet was full of clothes all over the floor, hanging. The master bathroom was kind of a mess with clothes on the counter. There was some children's clothes by one of the sinks. There was another bedroom upstairs, but I don't specifically remember what was in that bedroom.
Let's talk about the bottom floor then, when you walked in. Did you notice any signs of any kind of renovation or improvements that we made?
Absolutely.
What did you notice?
So going back downstairs, there was wood slats, and I'm a homeowner, and I know that when you buy wood flooring, the manufacturer of the flooring wants the flooring put into the house to adapt to the moisture and temperature of your house for a couple of days before they'll lay it. There was wood slats all piled up in the living room, pretty close to the front door. As soon as you walk in, it was directly to your right on the floor. I already talked about the fresh paint on the wall downstairs. There was a paint can down at the base of, there's a stairwell going up to a two-story house. And there was a paint can down at the base of the stairwell. There was, to my memory, there was something unusual about the paint can. Either the lid was just askew or there was something sitting on top of the paint can, but I cannot remember exactly which it was. There was more blue tape in the kitchen area. The kitchen drawers were all pulled out. They were white, different color than the walls that were freshly painted. Pots and pans, there was like an island, and there were pots and pans just piled on that island. It looked like people were taking out all the drawers to potentially paint underneath the island. That's what I assumed from the looks of the house.
Well, being a homeowner, you painted in your home?
Many times.
Did it smell like paint when you were out there on the 15th?
It did.
Did you notice any other smells?
No, there were dogs outside though.
The dogs were outside in the backyard?
Yes.
Can you describe those dogs, please?
One was big and one was little. That's kind of all I remember. They were friendly.
They weren't going crazy when you were there?
No.
You mentioned a little bit about the food items that you saw in the kitchen. You mentioned eggs. Do you recall where those eggs were and where you saw them, how you saw
They
them?
were definitely on the kitchen counter. My memory, from what I remember, the carton was open. In other words, it was just an egg carton, and the lid of the carton was open. The carton wasn't full, but it wasn't empty either. There were eggs inside that carton, so half full maybe.
You mentioned the small couch with the bowls of popcorn, or the futon. Did the futon have a cover on it?
It did not.
And you mentioned that they were fairly full of popcorn?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see any other popcorn in the kitchen?
Yes.
What did you see?
There was a bag of microwave popcorn that was open, and about half the contents were gone. My mind said that it was the right quantity for the amount of popcorn from the two bowls that was missing from the bag.
Did you notice any vegetables or fruits out?
Bananas that were spoiled. They were turning dark.
How about any other food items that you recall? Again, this is initial clearing of the house. Any other food items that you recall?
Not that I remember.
Were the bananas that were rotting, were they peeled or still in the peel?
They were whole. They were like right off the vine, just sitting on the counter.
Did you notice, you mentioned the paint and the paint can, did you notice any tape or painter's tapes that you would use to prevent paint from getting in other areas?
Yes, the blue painter's tape was, I guess you could call it the hallway as you enter the front door on the left wall, at the end of the wall where the stairwell goes up. It was also in the kitchen, and over on the wall by there's a bathroom door over there, and I saw blue painter's tape on the wall there too.
I think I would turn it to, turn the lights down.
I neglected to tell you about the garage, that's why I went back. The garage was full of stuff, looked like somebody was moving it.
I'm sorry, the garage was what?
Full of property, a family's property. It was just stacked, it was completely full, you couldn't have got a vehicle in there.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 11 and displayed to the jury. You recognize what that photo depicts?
I do.
What is that?
That is a downstairs den. That is a desk in the den with a computer on top of it. Well, the computer monitor on top of the desk. I believe the tower was below the desk.
You believe the what?
The tower, computer tower.
Okay. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the garage a little bit more too in a second. Showing you what's been marked previously as Exhibit 14. You recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
That's the master bedroom I referred to, where there was a large bed and then a smaller bed with children's toys in there. The lamp was pushed over and a TV mounted on the wall.
Okay. And you mentioned there might be all air mattresses. Was it the room you were talking about?
Yeah, I know there was an air mattress. I can't remember if they were all air mattresses.
Okay. And where do you see that depicted in that photograph? Do you have a pointer? I think there's a pointer up on the witness stand.
Oh, there is.
A laser pointer. There's a laser pointer, sir. You got it.
This thing that looks almost like a pen.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. What do you want me to point out?
The air mattresses?
Well, you have two smaller mattresses here and then the adult mattress. And I can't remember if they were all mattresses. I couldn't tell you which one was there or if all three of them were. At least one of them was.
Okay. It's kind of dark up there, but to the right, what's on the right of that photograph?
This?
Yes.
This is a piece of, it's a plastic house for children to play in.
And that's the condition of the, what we call the master bedroom?
Yes,
Is that how it was when you first did the clearing of the house?
yes.
Showing you. Exhibit 15. Can you tell us what we're seeing there?
Sure, and so the photographer has already walked through the master bedroom and now taken a left, and this is the master bedroom bathroom. And the clothing here was predominantly, well, it was adult clothing, predominantly female. The stuff here is child's onesie and child's clothing. And backpack there.
Okay, so when you said the stuff here predominantly female, that's going to be on the center of the photograph towards the right.
In between the two sinks, yes.
And when you said the child's clothing, that you were indicating to the lower left of that photograph.
That's correct.
Okay. On the upper left of that photograph, what did you see there?
Well, we have this is a reflection. Is that what you're talking about? The
Yeah.
shower, the shower and the reflection, and a robe.
Okay. Now, directly across from that double sinks there, what is there? If you recall.
It's a shower. I don't remember if there was an associated tub or not.
Okay. We'll come back to that. And Exhibit 17. Tell us what we're seeing there.
So this is standing at the top of the stairway in the second story. You're looking down into the first floor. You're looking into the dining room area. It's pretty obvious. This is the dining room table, the small circular dining room table I was talking about. You have a chair, it's a calculator, and a coffee cup. Child's chair that's pushed away from the table. Some of that, I was talking about the drawers being pulled out. This island had a lot of these white drawers in it, and they were removed from the island and on the floor, and there are pots and pans up here.
Tell us a little bit more about the garage area that you described. There was stuff everywhere, you said, you couldn't park a car.
Right.
What else did you see in there initially?
There were strollers, bicycles, lawn equipment, boxes. It looked like a staging area to bring in knickknacks, etc., in the boxes, that kind of thing. Also, documents, boxes full of paper.
Some of those papers appear to have account information on them.
I did find accounting information on papers later, not on this tour. This initial tour was the clearing of the house with the patrol deputy.
Right, but later. Okay, we'll get to that later then. After you cleared the house, and there's nobody in there, obviously, what'd you do next?
I backed out and I spoke to Mike McStay, the reporting party. We call it the reporting party. Person making the missing persons report.
And where did you talk to Mr. Mike McStay at?
My vehicle was parked on the residential street very near the house, and we sat inside my vehicle, and myself, Suzanne Fisk, and Michael talked.
During the course of your conversation there with Mike McStay, well, as an investigator at this point, what are you trying to get?
So I had obviously some level of concern. It was a missing persons report, which traditionally doesn't mean there's any foul play. We get missing persons reports in San Diego County every week. Many times, most of the time, the person comes back home or is found in a hospital or in custody, forgot to call home, and parents get worried and call. That's traditional missing person. That's the reason an area detective holds that report for 10 days and then it comes to homicide. Because I had showed up and talked to Deputy Tingley, knew that we were at 11 days, I found that suspicious, without a doubt. I needed to talk to a family member and did talk to Mike McStay to get me to a place where, was this unusual? Had this ever happened before? Or, what level of concern are we at? When I was in the house, I talked about my observations. My primary objective when I go into a house on a missing persons case, to be able to walk through a house without a search warrant, I am truly searching for injured persons, deceased persons, persons who don't belong in the house, bad guys. And once that's done, I have to back out. I don't get to walk through, search, and examine from a detective's desire. On the other hand, because I was a homicide detective and got to clear the house with the patrol deputy, I did keep my eyes open to what I cared about on top of looking for what could be foul play. So that's why I preached exactly what I preached about what my observations were. That's not necessarily what every cop would look for. Once I came out and I talked to Mike McStay, he told me it was not typical for his brother and
Overall goes to knowledge that he had and basis for subsequent actions.
Good.
So Michael McStay told me that his family did not typically leave for 11 days. He was very concerned. On the other hand, he wasn't sure exactly when they had disappeared. He had a guess, and he had guessed that it was February 4th based on whatever research he had done. But he said it could have been somewhere closer to the 15th when I got there. He said there had been a time when Joseph McStay had taken his family to some sort of weekend camping or retreat adventure, and they couldn't get a hold of Joseph. So this seemed out of the ordinary, but it wasn't crazy suspicious.
Did he tell you when he first went to the residence there in Avocado Vista Lane?
Yes.
When did he say?
He went on February 13th
And did he tell you who he went with?
with the defendant.
Did he ever say anything about being there prior to February 13th?
No.
You already mentioned the defendant. Did you, during that conversation, learn about the name of Charles Merritt or Chase Merritt?
I did.
And was that from Mike initially?
Yes.
And were you able to obtain contact information for Charles Merritt?
I don't know if it was in the interview with Michael, but either within that interview or shortly after that, because I knew I needed to talk to the defendant.
And was the number you obtained or the number you contacted the defendant with, at least for the first year or so of this investigation, is that fair?
That's fair.
Was it the same?
It stayed the same.
Okay. Was that 909-374-0102?
That is the number.
And when you would contact the defendant during this investigation, that's the number you would use?
Yes.
Did you also get contact numbers for other individuals?
I did.
Including Summers' family
Yes.
and Dan Cavanaugh?
I think that took a little time, but we have the name Dan Cavanaugh, but I don't think anyone had a phone number for him. I think that came later.
But I guess, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're trying to get as much information as you can.
Absolutely.
Okay. At this stage, are you thinking homicide, or are you thinking missing persons, or is there a distinction?
Well, I know for a fact I have a missing persons case, and I am more than concerned because the children are gone, and I don't have a good story for why they're gone. I even reached out to find out if the adults were fighting, right? That's a very traditional domestic issue. Two adults fight, one goes running away and the other one goes chasing, and now the family doesn't know what's going on. Those are some of the things running through my head from a missing persons aspect. My fear and my job is to always be concerned about the homicide. That was in my head from the very moment I responded to Deputy Tingley, is make sure you're covering your bases for if this is a homicide.
After you contacted Mike McStay there on the 15th, did you also learn, at least during the briefing, that the family's Isuzu Trooper had been located?
Yes, yes.
You started to explain.
The way I remember it is I asked, Deputy Tingley and I had some communication before we went in the house, and I had asked him, because he has the use of his computer in his car and the radio for dispatch and inquiry, to find out all the cars that are registered to that house. Who are these people? We know their names. How many cars they got, and where are the cars? And he came back to me and said, you have that green truck in the driveway is registered to the McStay family, and there's a Isuzu Trooper that's outstanding. Oh no, he told me it was impounded. He had discovered it was impounded by getting, we call it VRT, vehicles registered to. The Trooper was registered to the McStay family. He ran it through inquiry. Inquiry told him that the vehicle was impounded or stored down in South Bay of San Diego. And I just took that information down and knew I needed to go look at the Trooper.
Okay. What did you do with that information?
Well, I documented it in my notes, and eventually I wrote a search warrant for the house and the Trooper and retrieved that Trooper. I retrieved the Trooper first under an evidence code.
Okay. When you say retrieve the Trooper, what did you do?
I physically went down with Detective Fisk. We went to the South Bay of San Diego. I think this was the following day, and contacted the tow yard, ascertained where the Trooper was impounded from. I learned it was impounded from a parking lot at a major shopping center down in San Ysidro, and that it had been there since February 8th. And I took that information, logged it in, and knew I had to follow up on where that vehicle was last seen.
Okay. There was an assertion made that San Diego also failed to get the video surveillance system from the parking lot in San Ysidro.
Your Honor, this objection assumes facts are not in evidence.
Sustained it.
Well, did you get the video surveillance from San Ysidro?
Absolutely.
Okay. Was that the very next day?
Next day.
Where's my toy here? And you were with Detective Fisk? Were you with Detective?
You're talking about the 16th?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This be a good time to take our afternoon recess.
Sure.
We'll go ahead and take our afternoon recess, it's going to be 15 minutes. Keep in mind we have additions given to you, not to form or express any opinions about the case, not to discuss the case, and we'll see everyone back in about 15 minutes.